Okay, so you're saying that you first decided that you want to do freelancing and then you picked data analytics without having the experience.
Yeah, exactly. Project. I remember I got paid around $350 for a single one. That's the highest I've
Wow.
earned. And by the way, is to do a lot of projects, right? So you'll start off from bare bones, right? You'll start off from $5, this dirt cheap prices,
I
right?
guess people would judge me that, I call you that you are still in the final year of your college because it doesn't seem like one.
Whatever I've learned during my time in college, whatever useful things I've learned is from the internet. Like you can find everything there. And
And I've seen that there's also defaulting a lot on these platforms. So have you
yeah,
experienced any of that?
I used to come back
Yeah.
from giving my exams and from my labs as well in the morning, and I used to just finish up the work in the evening. So it was very relaxing as well because it was a way to also escape from all the burden of college.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of Decoding Data Analytics. This show is all about analytics from the perspective of global data experts who are CTOs, authors, analytic leaders, hiring managers, and top data professionals. And I'll be your host for the show, Jahanvee Narang, currently working as a data analyst. For our viewers, this is Srijan Devnath. He's currently in the third year of the college. Over to you, Srijan. Would love to know more about your journey.
Hi, Janvi. First of all, thanks for having me on your show, and it feels great to be here as well. And I'll just introduce myself in a few words. Hi, everyone. I'm Srijan. I'm currently in my final year of engineering. I'm studying out of Bangalore from RV College of Engineering, and I'm in my final year from the Information Science and Engineering department. And yeah, I have, as Janvi told, I have been freelancing for the past year as well. It's been like a great journey full of like ups and downs, but it's been really rewarding so far.
Wow, that's totally amazing. Like people wait for, campus placements to kick in and then they start prepping and they wait for really wrong to, get into data analytics. It's really amazing to see you before even getting graduated. You created such an impact in the data analytics industry. It's like a booming one. So, to do freelancing for 1 year, even more than that, I saw that you have even worked for Fiverr and you have even worked for Next Billion. So it's pretty amazing. Like, would love to know how exactly you get started. Like, what all you did to make the entry into freelancing industry.
Absolutely. Like I would have to talk about that as well. I think this entire journey started a year back, right? And I think the interesting story is that how it got started, right? I think a year back,
Mm-hmm.
our college just started our internships and like our placements as well, right? So like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
students were really excited for sitting for companies and like getting internships as well, right?
Yeah.
But I would say I was kind of like a different person then because I really didn't have a lot of clarity about where I wanted my career to be, right? Because I am from information science, so that entire
Yeah.
notion was that you have to get into software, you have to crack these big companies, and like obviously get a lot of salary as well. So a lot of people around me were very excited, but I really
Mm.
didn't feel the urge or the excitement to pursue something in software, right? And that was very contradictory because my peers were like kind of also forcing me into like, Acha, what are you going to do if not software, right? What else are you going to pursue, right?
Yeah.
So that itself was a lot of pressure that I put myself under. But I think that entire thing stopped when I just looked around and just tried to research what else is there, right, apart from even just software, right? So I looked
Mm.
at data science, which was like a huge popular, and it still is popular, right? But that was like
Yeah.
a good field as well. But I did dabble a bit, but again, I wasn't really sure as to what I wanted to set my foot in, right? Because I wanted some sort of surety that I this is the exact thing that I want to enter, right? So then I
Yeah.
found out, is there any sort of small gigs or like small like ventures that I could do, right? Not full on
Mm.
internships or like full on jobs. That's where I kind of
Yeah.
found out about freelancing, right? And I think that freelancing was a popular thing back then as well. It's just a year, right? But I think that entry, I was very hesitant because I didn't really know how it would pan out, how much time it would take me, right? And even that, would I even get a client as well, right? I think that was like the kind of hesitation, but that really again was like a kind of a decision that I took out of the blue, and I did start my profile then. And I think that decision was just out of like nowhere. I really was unsure at first, but I think freelancing was a step that I took because I wanted to pursue something very different. And I think that's the step I took a year back.
Okay. So you are saying that you first decided that you want to do freelancing and then you picked data analytics without having the experience.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Wow.
think, yeah, exactly. I think picking freelancing was the first option, right? Because I think that looked like a very lucrative decision, not really investing too much, like a full on
Yeah.
job or like an internship, but also having some time on the side, right? So that was like a prior decision. Data analytics was a very different story. So once I decided I wanted to do freelancing, again I had a like a hurdle, right? What to do freelancing in, right? Because again,
Yeah.
I've never really heard people doing freelancing software roles, because again that's a very big field,
Mm.
right? So that
Yeah.
was again a challenge to find out what I was interested in. And gradually, I think just researching, looking at people's stories, and just surfing
Mm.
YouTube as well, I landed on data analytics. And I very quickly found out that I want to do something like this only, because this involved
Oh.
technicality as well, but also just this entire business side as well, which I was very interested in also.
Yeah.
So that was this kind of eventual gradual step.
Wow, that's actually amazing. Like people go the other way around where they decide the industry and then they feel like, okay, I still have time. Maybe, before moving ahead towards the job and getting into the corporate world, let's try freelancing. But you go the other way around where you started, okay, I want to do freelancing. And okay, what's working? What's trending in freelancing? Okay, data analytics. This is
Yeah.
something which I can go, not too technical, not too shabby, good for me. So then you picked it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's that's
Absolutely.
uh, that's really that's really amazing and interesting story. So I'd love to know, like, once you have decided that okay, you want to do data analytics and you want to do freelancing for now, so what all skill set you started off with to get
Yeah.
your first gig?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think that involved a lot of research, right? Because I was constantly looking up articles, like
Mm,
videos online as to what I needed, right? So I very quickly
yeah,
found out that you not only need, obviously, your basic technical skills, right, to do your job, do your gig perfectly well, but also it required a lot of soft skills as well, like logical thinking, problem solving, and also having an inherent sense of business, right? Like you need to have that business
yeah,
acumen. So even though I was sure about the technical side of things, like I could learn Python, SQL, all that stuff really well, I was also like excited to also learn about this business side as well, because I know that this field requires a lot of critical thinking as well.
yeah,
So in that process, I found out that I could crack the technical part really well in under a month. But slowly over time, also started looking up how people crack cases, business studies as well. And I think that was the prerequisite. So at the very start, I was not really, obviously not like too good in like these technical skills, but I had a
yeah,
good foundation in Python because I was already learning that. And I learned up
yeah,
SQL, then Tableau as well for my visualization. And on the side, I like did a lot of business cases, well, small like videos, and also like these articles as well, which gave me a lot of insight. So for my first gig, I would say like I just learned these basics, and over time I obviously learned a lot.
Wow, wow, that's totally amazing. Like, would love to know, like, what was the amount for the first gig?
Yeah, so this is very, again, this is kind of embarrassing as well, but I mean, I'm not
No
afraid to say
worries.
that, because I think I chose Fiverr as a platform because it was a lot easier for me as a student to kind of get clients, because obviously I could say the more traditional route is to cold message people and approach startups as
Yeah,
well. But for me at the start, I felt like I didn't really have a lot to leverage, right? Because I was just a very new, not just like an experienced person, but like a
yeah,
like student as well, right? So I felt like Fiverr could be a better way, because it's a platform where you can just upload. So I did my profile, I made my own profile, I put up some sample work cases that I did. And I remember that it took me 2 months to get my first client. So I actually
oh,
forgot about the whole thing. So I sat for like 2 months, and at the end I just completely forgot until I got the notification. So I was pretty excited. And I
wow,
actually saw a video where they recommended that you start off like selling yourself very low. You kind of undersell yourself, because you
mm,
need to have that sort of leverage early on, right?
yeah,
So my very first project was just like a mere $5. So it's like around 250 rupees. Like honestly,
oh, wow,
it was nothing. So but I was still
yeah,
very excited, because I couldn't really
yeah,
believe that I actually
first
got it,
one,
because I knew from stories that it took a long time. And I was kind of understood that okay, maybe 6 months or maybe never also, right? But I got my first
yeah.
client, and even though it was like a very small amount, but it was really exciting to get that also.
Yeah, I mean, getting the first client is really a heavy task. It's okay, I guess, to, put a little amount for the starters, because at the end, it's all about experience. You are here, you are in college right now. So for
Yeah,
you, at least, the majority of your course goes into like, how can I gain more experience? How can I gain more,
absolutely.
how can I learn more? How can I gain more? So I guess that pretty much worked out in your favor. Would love to know like what the first gig was about, like what exactly
Yeah.
was expected out of you and what the all skill set was required.
Yeah, absolutely. I also remember exactly what the task was about. It was a very simple, I would say. Like now, I look back and think it's very simple, but that time it looked kind of daunting as well. But it was a pretty simple thing. So I got like a request from a client to really solve a visualization problem. So they gave me an Excel file which they had their company or like the startup sales because it was a employee for startup. So they wanted basically analysis of sales of their products. Right? They were like a SaaS company and they had different
Okay.
products as well on their lineup and they wanted to do an analysis. So in terms of that, I just had two things. I had an Excel file of their data that they gave me and also a Word document containing their parameters, like basically what things are needed to visualization on. So after that, I
Hmm.
just started off. So it was pretty simple. Like again, it required just like my Tableau skills. It wasn't coding at all, and also I didn't use
Okay.
SQL because the data was already there. It was a simple
Yeah.
visualization task, and I got it done under like in like 4 hours. So it was kind of a good amount of work. Yeah, it wasn't a lot of work. And I remember
That's
that day I had my exams as well. So I had a meeting
oh,
with the client at 7 a.m. in the morning, which was like insane
oh
for me to wake up. I had my exam
yeah.
at 9 a.m. I came back and finished the work. And by 9 o'clock the same day evening, I finished their work and gave their portfolio work back. So that was under in a day's work, and I was really excited because also I had this constant communication with them. I had meetings with them regarding Acha, exactly what do you want from this project, right? What all expectations you have, and that entire thing gave me a lot of insights as to how to approach a
Yeah.
client, how to talk to them as well. So yeah, my first gig
Yeah.
was very memorable as well. Like it involved everything, you could say.
Yeah, it was actually pretty amazing. You gained experience
Yeah.
without any, going into a course, taking a huge hefty or paying any hefty amount to gain a course and gain the knowledge. You actually just learned the data analytics skill set within a month, I would say, and
Yeah.
then landed up to your first gig within 2 weeks. So that was pretty amazing, I would say.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, like how's the life of freelance data analyst? It's been like more than 1 year that you've been
Yeah.
doing this. So how's life like this?
I think it's great, honestly, because I'm still a student, right? So everything that I'm managing is like pretty okayish, I would say, because I go to college sometimes in the mornings, and even like when I was freelancing, right, I used to sometimes skip classes, and like within that 1 hour, I should do a project completely. So that was like a very good mix as well, because it's not too taxing as well, and that's what I liked about freelancing,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't take up all your time. It's like a side hustle, right? So I used to come back
Yeah.
from giving my exams and from my labs as well in the morning, and I used to just finish up a work in the evening. So it was very relaxing as well because it was a way to also escape from all the burden of college, right? Because like college
Yeah.
itself is very taxing. So I was just like I used to listen to a lot of music and just do the work on the side. So it was very relaxing as well. But throughout this entire process, I feel like it's a really good thing, especially for students, right? Because you're not doing
Hmm.
like a lot of work, right? And you're not putting 11
Yeah.
hours of work, you're just attending college. So this is really
Yes.
beneficial for students as well because you can manage your school life also along with
Yeah.
your this thing. So it's been really rewarding as well. Like also the monetary benefits are amazing, obviously. So that's been
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that does make sense because, I've been taking a lot of one-on-one calls to understand how exactly, people are struggling with when they are trying to transition into data analytics field. Most of them are graduates, most of them are trying to, transition from a different field. And the one thing they really struggle with is they don't have the relevant work experience. Most of them just go to, YouTube or take some courses and just perform the same kind of projects which are mentioned in their resume, and that's why that's the problem that they're not even able to crack the interviews or even clear the first part of the round because they don't have the proper number of keywords which is required these days to clear the ATS system, to leverage up.
Exactly.
And I feel that as a student, this is a really great way to stand out from the crowd. First thing, you'll be working on a real world project. It's not like you're using any dummy data from Kaggle and just creating a Tableau dashboard around it. Second thing, you're actually getting paid for the work you are doing.
Yeah.
So I would say even if you keep the amount low for the starters, I guess it would work out for you.
Absolutely.
Because one, you will gain the experience. Second, you will have actually a relevant work experience to add in your resume. And yeah, then the monetary benefit, as you said.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the skill set, as you mentioned, required to, get started in freelancing would be SQL, Tableau, right? Is there anything else which is really required for data analytics gigs?
Yeah, I think you're correct as well as because I think there's usually four very distinctive skills that you need. One is Tableau. Like it's good to have a coding language, right? So Python or R is really good. Both are good. R is a bit more statistical in nature, so sometimes people shy away from that. But Python is really good. Like sometimes actually the
Yeah.
requirements are in like Python as well. It's coded, so you need to have good understanding of Python as well, and only just the data
Okay.
analysis part, which like some libraries here and there. Secondly, SQL obviously very important, very underrated also
Yeah.
because sometimes people just ditch SQL because they don't feel like it's important. It is important, especially for
Yeah.
when you're working for companies and freelancing as well. Tableau or Power BI again, good for visualization as well. You need to have a good tool as well for that. And I think
Yeah.
lastly, it's another very underrated tool is Excel. Like people just count off
Yeah.
Excel like anything, right? They feel like it's very
It's very
2010 and
important.
like it's very old school, but it's very important. It's very good for quick analysis when you're not good with Python, right? And you
Yeah.
can also do dashboards as well. It's a bit harder, but it's very important to know Excel as well. Like I think it's very underrated as well.
Yeah, I guess after learning these skill set, you'll be able to set for any data analytics gig, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You will definitely do the not just the basics, but also advanced level because all of these skills are scalable. So like you will just learn
Yeah.
better and better from now on.
Yeah, I mean, for our viewers, I guess the first question would be, where do you learn all these skill sets? So, is there any resource, or is there any particular YouTube channel, or any your favorite tutor or creator which you really like and follow their learnings?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I some of come up to my mind right off now because I referred a few because obviously there's not a single video
Yeah.
that I looked up, right? There's a multiple because you're learning four different skills, right? So firstly, I would say for very starters, right, when you're learning, let's say just the intro, Free Code Camp is
Mhm.
amazing. Like they have an entire,
Yeah.
it's about 4 hour long playlist, so you can just view it whenever you're free, right? It's about data analysis for Python, so that's a good way to
Okay.
enter and know about Python as well, especially for data analysis. Then for
Okay.
data analysts, especially how they work, right? Shashank Kaliniti, I hope I didn't butcher that
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
amazing, honestly. He teaches in a
Yeah.
manner which is extremely good, and it's very
Mm.
good for also learning what do data analysts do in a day, right? So
Yeah.
he gives very real world information. So I think
Yeah. I
that's
really like his coffee
absolutely
Q&As as well.
yeah. I tune up whenever I'm free, honestly, because it's very helpful, right? And his tutorials are very good, especially once you have learned about it in a beginner
The
way. So
basics.
it's good once
Yeah.
you start about it and you can follow it along for a long time, right? And it's really helpful. Apart from that, I have a few which are kind of personal preferences again. I love I forgot his name actually. There's one data guy as well. I'm not really sure his exact name, but he's really good as well. And I think
Okay.
just some good tutorials from Simply Learn and Edureka, those are really good
Hmm.
bite-sized information as well. Like they're 7 minute long videos and they're amazing, honestly. So I would say just pick if you have preferences, you can go for that as well. But
Yeah.
generally, these guys, whatever I talked about, are amazing. Honestly, you will definitely learn a lot. And again, I would also love to refer articles as well from Medium articles because they
Yeah.
are extremely specific, but they're very helpful. Let's say you want to learn something very specific, right? But it's a bit harder. Definitely go for
Mm-hmm.
articles. Articles are amazing. Like they not might not be for all people, right? Because some people like visual content, but articles are
Yeah.
very underrated.
Yeah, I would say that Medium and towards Data Science Analytics India,
Absolutely, yeah.
Nimag and KD Nuggets, they have some really amazing blogs, which anyone can, get started with. Yeah, so I guess you learned everything on the internet,
Yeah,
or was there a
absolutely.
guru for you just directing you,
Honestly,
okay,
I
for
would
this?
I would say that that's a really good question. Like I would say like whatever I've learned during my time in college, whatever useful things I've learned is from the internet. Like you can find everything there, and I'll like
Mhm.
90% is free, right? So why not? Like why
Yeah,
not go for the one that's available all the time, right? And especially freelancing, like there's so many good resources, right? So many people to there's not just one person or like one guru that you can refer to. There's so many people out there. So I would say like whenever you have time, whenever you have like this access to information, you should definitely do that because you there's no excuse, right? Because there's so much information available. There's so many good people to follow. Like why not start doing
yeah.
that? Like that's obviously the need of the hour as well.
Yeah, definitely. One thing which, senior people or a person working in the corporate world for more than 5 to 6 years, they would say that the one thing they really get better with is Googling. So they get
Yeah.
just better with Googling. It's not just that they remember the syntax or they remember everything they have done or the coding. Whenever they get stuck somewhere, they can Google it and get the answer. So
Yeah.
that's, number one priority for people who are in the corporate world. And I guess that you utilizing that, mantra for sure. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I mean,
amazing.
that's the best part, honestly. Like learning that skill, apart from anything else, is
Yeah.
better because you'll just find more and more information. So if you're going to get better at something, just get better at Googling. Like I would say that. Yeah.
Your first question you mentioned, in your first answer, you mentioned that it's very important to also learn about the business acumen and the domain knowledge.
Yeah.
To know that what are the business knowledge or the business acumen you have acquired, marketing, sales, merchandising, purchasing, logistics,
Yeah.
supply chain, what are, available in the freelancing gigs?
Absolutely. So I'll just break down this question into two main answers, right? First is that very important thing is to know that these skills, right, you won't learn from day one. Like these are
Yeah.
very subjective knowledge that you're learning, right? And you will only get
Hmm.
better as you do more projects, as you handle more clients, right? So this is very important to know because a lot of people sideline these things, right? They're like, this is okay, this is very easy, but it's not. It's actually like more important than technical skills because you need to have that business acumen to drive your technical knowledge, right? So that's one
Yeah.
part, right? Secondly, I would say on business skills, right? So you need to have a lot of different analysis points, right? Because see, the best thing about freelancing, or sometimes also the worst, is that you deal with a lot of different domains, right? Healthcare, consulting, analysis, big tech. So there's not one single industry that you're tied to, right? Because clients can come from anywhere, right? Startups, big
Yeah.
companies as well. So there's, I think, three main things to know. First of all is simple analysis of business, what they're doing, right? So you need to have communication skills to know, acha, which business are you doing, right? What is your type of a
Hmm.
business, right? So one really good thing is questioning the client as much as you can, right, to get information.
Yeah.
Secondly, could be having like knowledge and acumen about how to drive insights, right? Like that's the most important thing, right? So let's say, because here's the thing, you'll be given a like a lot of data. Right? There's a lot of data there. There's like 100 columns in Excel, 100 rows in Excel. So if you don't know which columns are the most important, which is the most important parameters, then there's no use of that data, right? You can apply whatever SQL you need, whatever Python you need. You won't be able to do that skill because you need to drive out the most important thing. So over time, over practice, you need to have these insights as to, okay, my client has given me this problem. What is the closest parameters that I can find to this problem, right? And I usually cipher that down to like 3, 4 columns. That's it. Like half of the
Hmm.
data is like not useful for you, only a little bit is. And knowing
Yeah.
what it is, that's the whole thing, right? That's the whole ball game.
Yeah.
So I would say knowing about analysis, knowing about deriving insights, just knowing about the field as well, it's most important, right? Because these skills will help you use your technical power. Only after this you can use your technical power, right? So over a period of time, you have to know about like just business analysis, generation of insights, learning about
Yeah.
these technical skills as well, and also just like understanding what the client is trying to say, right, to the best of your technique as well. So I would say that is kind of the main business acumen skills that you need.
Yeah, but like as you mentioned that the client can come from any domain. It could be
Yeah.
healthcare, it could be fintech, it could be startup, it could be big MNC. So how exactly you prep yourself? Like how exactly you study up?
Got it. Got it. Absolutely, that's a good question as well. So what I do personally is just put as you said, put myself in the shoes of that person, right? So let's say again, a very good example is, let's say you're a part of a growing startup, right? You need to penetrate a market which is already populated by a lot of people, right? And that's the
Yeah.
kind of case study that comes up a lot, right? Because I usually work a lot with startups more than big companies because they need the insights as well. So the very first
Yeah.
thing is to put yourself in the shoes of that person, right? Secondly, it's
Hmm.
more about what is that problem and what has happened before, right? So what has been the trend up till now and what do you expect in the future, right? So let's say I'm trying to solve a problem about penetrating a market, right? So I'll
Yeah.
understand, acha, what has been the trend so far? Like, has this product from my competitors penetrated well into the market or not, right? Because if it
Hmm.
has, then I need to make innovations, right? So then
Yeah.
there I position myself exactly in the middle, right? So I talk to the client, which is, acha, what has been the trend? What has been the growth in this market? Has the users increased? Has the total number of like people increased in this market? If yes, then
Yeah.
I innovate and I make more solutions on that, right? So that has been like a constant process. So I think the third thing also is also deriving insights. So obviously there's a lot of data out there, right? You need to pick the most
Yeah.
important thing. So let's say you also need to make a lot of compromises as well. So let's say maybe you have to sell your product at a lower a lower price to gain more this thing, right? So you will have to talk to the client saying that, Acha, your product is doing really well, but you have to kind of tone down the price to gain more popularity, gain more market share in this thing, right? And that's where you will draw insights, which is the competitors have priced it lower, so you should also price it lower to at least bring it at a competitive rate, right? And that is done through
Mm.
a combination of data and analyzing the most important fields out there, and then using your knowledge in that regard there. So I would say it's a bunch of different skills, right? It's mostly
Yeah.
about firstly understanding from a first person perspective, right? You need to know it from the
Yeah.
perspective of the client, right? Secondly, it's about also understanding the domain as well. What does the existing culture look like? What can be the future? That's what you're predicting, right? And thirdly,
Yeah.
the putting priority on a few things, not everything, right? You can't solve every problem, right? So you have to, and you're okay to make compromises, right? But you have to arrive at a good middle point, you could say. So this is just a combination of those things.
Wow, wow, that's that's something interesting.
Yeah,
I have taken like so many podcasts, and everyone who have like great experience have mentioned that it's very important to have domain experience. It's very important to understand what exactly you really want to serve the client, and just picking like one user story and turning your whole presentation around so that your client or your customer just stick with that particular one number,
exactly.
instead of just focusing on like 10 different numbers and trying to prove, okay, we can do this, we can do that, we can do that also, we can do this also. Instead of that, just picking out one thing and just focusing on that and creating a whole story around that is something which will really stick to the clients also and customers also. And
Absolutely.
this was really insightful for me, and this learning I got from Adam Stroka and Vin Vashishta, who have over like 10 plus years of experience.
Yeah,
And listening the same thing from you is like really mind blowing, that freelancing does teach you a lot of things which you won't even get to learn in the corporate world, because you don't get to deal with clients one on one.
exactly.
It's mostly through a hierarchy where there'll be a manager, where there will be a senior leadership, where there will be VPs and all. So I guess there's also one advantage to do freelancing, is that you are all on your own. So you have to
Yeah,
act as a manager also, you have to act as a VP also, you have to act as everyone. You are your own
yeah,
company.
yeah,
So that's amazing. Like, I really like that about you, especially at this age where you just started with the fourth year, as you said.
yeah. Just entered. It's been a
Yeah,
month
I
only.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's totally amazing. Like, I have 2 plus years of working experience, in this field, and even I never got to, experience this thing which you got with freelancing. So I think that's a great leverage to have.
absolutely.
So, since you are enjoying so much of freelancing, like, are you looking forward to continue freelancing post your college,
Yeah.
or would you, want to, try for the MNC or the corporate world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to reference what you said also earlier on, which is as freelancers, you have to be master of everything, right? Because you have to manage yourself, you have to be accountable, you have to be responsible, but also you have to keep growing. You can't stay stagnant,
Yeah,
like because people will not take your services from you, right? If you don't
yeah,
keep improving yourself. So I think that is what kind of I latched on to, kind of because see, it's been a year, right? So I've been freelancing here and I've been trying to be my own boss and stuff. So as the best I can, right? But also there's
yeah.
also one thing that I also kind of not dislike, but also think that it should be more proactively done, which is working in teams, right? Like obviously people who
Hmm.
freelance sometimes run agencies, right? They do that, but
Yeah,
a lot of people are solo freelancers, right? So in that,
yeah,
I think it puts a lot of pressure on you to really keep yourself updated, right? You have to make schedules, you have to attend client calls, you have to deliver the best sort of work possible, right? So I think in
yeah,
that way, you're also kind of isolating yourself in one way because you don't talk to, I mean, you're not working in a team, right? So I think for
yeah,
me personally, I did sit for my placements as well because again, but also for roles which are business analysts because I knew what I
yeah.
wanted to sit for, right? So I have a full time offer which I'll be sitting for after my graduation.
Oh,
Yeah, and sometimes like when I talk to people about this, people kind of get irked, which is like, why go for jobs, right? Like why not continue freelancing? And that's a good question,
yeah,
right? That's an important question. But I feel like freelancers do have a lot of advantage, but it's sometimes very beneficial to learn under a manager, learn with a
Yeah.
team, right? Because that gives you a lot of different insights. Like working in a good company gives you so much
Yeah.
experience and so much exposure, right? Which maybe you can reach as a good freelancer, but it's very sometimes limited, right? So I feel
Yeah.
like I would definitely be continuing if I can, but again, moonlighting and all is very dangerous sometimes. So definitely don't want to get caught in that. But yeah, I'm very looking forward to working in a team as well and working under good managers as well, because I feel like it's really good. And freelancing is
Yeah.
obviously amazing as a college student. You can't ask for better things. But I feel like, again, it's a very personal thing where I feel like I will learn a lot more when I'm working with a company as well. So that's kind of my future plans, you could say.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree on you that, for colleges, I would say that the freelancing is a great place to be at. But for future, I guess corporate world does, surprise you with great managers and great leadership where you're not just, focusing on growing and earning money. It's also about, utilizing the experience they had over the certain years and whatever they learned. And instead of, just learning and upskilling yourself on your own, you are basically utilizing the experience they already had and just
Exactly.
squeezing that out
Exactly.
and using that to upskill yourself in a better format because they have already been through that part, so they know how it works. They know what worked for them, what didn't. They know what resources are helpful for you to grow. So I guess that also captivates for yourself in growing and upskilling to the ladder. So
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
what was your highest gig amount?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's the question of the hour, you could say. And a lot of people
from
excited.
two from 250 to like X amount, what's that?
Yeah, I think usually the way I work, right, is usually I get paid per project as a whole, not really
Okay.
per month, because that's usually done as a later part.
Yeah.
So for a single project, I remember I got paid around $350 for a single one. That's the highest I've
Wow.
earned. And but honestly, some people might be like, "Oh, acha, it's a lower amount, whatever, whatever." But the most surprising thing is I worked on it only for 2 days. And like that's
Oh,
yeah, that's the catch,
that's
right?
a big
Because
oh.
yeah, that is like, honestly, that's the best part of analysis as well. Like you start off
Yeah.
slow, right? You start off earning not a lot, but you have to be patient. You have to wait until the long run, right? Because then once you're really good at it, you can leverage a lot. You can just like
Yeah.
obviously negotiate a lot with your client to on your own terms, right? And that's better because
Yeah.
you can do that work in like max 3 days, 4 days, right? And you can earn a lot from that. And obviously, like clients from Fiverr itself are from foreigners, so they usually pay a lot
Yeah.
as well because they care about the quality, not about the amount as well. So I think that's
Yeah.
really important as well, to just stick on and hang on until you feel like you can leverage a lot. It's sometimes people get really hesitant because you don't see the results right from day one, and that's not important. That the important thing is you stick on with that, and eventually
Okay.
you make a lot of money. Like that's obviously going to happen once you become that master itself.
Yeah, I guess consistency is really important. I guess
Exactly.
it's very important to show up daily and, just keep progressing no matter what the results are at the end
Yeah,
of the day. After a certain point, that iceberg will, fall off and you will
absolutely.
rise through.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what worked in every industry, I guess. So yeah, I mean that's amazing. Would love to know like what was the project about, which you completed in 2 days and got like such a huge
Yeah, yeah.
gig.
So this was again a startup because apparently startups like to shell a lot of money early on. But
Oh,
for them, it was basically a two-part project, right? So first, they needed
okay.
analysis and basically a lot of cleaning as well, because the problem with them was that they didn't have in-house members to do that, right? They were looking for
Hmm.
freelancers as well. So for them, they needed like a long step as well. So firstly, the project was about
Yeah.
cleaning data and also analyzing their reports as well, because they wanted to launch a new product, right? A
Hmm.
new, like a product which was there already in other countries, but they wanted to do it in their own country. This is again
Okay.
in a Canadian startup, so they have their own policies here and there. So that was about basically a three-step process. First was again analyzing the data, and data in the sense that they just wanted to like experiment with this data. They didn't really have constructive data as well, because they were like a new startup as well, right? They wanted to penetrate the market.
Hmm.
So it was more about forecasting and reporting in the future, right? So it required
Okay.
taking data from other sources, from their own data warehouses, and then cleaning it, pipelining it into one thing, right? So it was a
Okay.
combination of analysis, firstly from cleaning, right? Cleaning, checking the data out, mixing it, merging it, and then finally analyzing it and making insights out of it. I think the hardest part is not the visualization, it's the analysis, because there you have to really rack your brain out. So it took me a whole
Yeah.
day just for this thing. Like I could finish the analysis very quickly, right? Because it wasn't a lot of thing. But generating insights, right? It has to be very accurate and very helpful for them. So that took a day itself, right? And then the other day was just about using my technical knowledge. So just building dashboards on Tableau, analyzing data on Excel and Python. And I think that took the majority time. So I think that was the entire thing. But again, this I did a lot of early because I was free, honestly. I just didn't finish my exams that day. And I was just sitting free. I just ran it in like 8 hours straight. So maybe that's why it got finished so quickly. Like it didn't. You are not supposed to speed up things that quick. So I just did
Yeah.
that because I was free that day. So that's kind of about it. About it.
Yeah, I guess if you were able to complete that particular project in 2 days, that means that you have already done something similar in the
Yeah, yeah,
past.
yeah,
Otherwise,
absolutely.
it could be like bit tricky to, complete that within like 48 hours of time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you shouldn't actually, I mean, I don't want to give a wrong advice here. You shouldn't speed run things because you need to be very meticulous. So this was a very
Yeah,
recent project. That's why I was very confident, right? Because once you're starting, do take a lot of time, right? Like clients
yeah,
usually they're very generous with their times, right? They will tell you have 1 week. So it's better to, again, obviously better to finish quickly, right? They're happy with your work, but
yeah,
don't rush things, right? It's very important, especially analysis requires a lot of niche details right here and there. So just
yeah.
take your time, don't rush things like I did. I mean, it just happens that you have the experience, then you can do that. But it's advisable to take decent amount of time and then put the best foot forward. Like you should have the best quality work done in whatever time you take. So it could be 1 day, 2 day, but just make sure it's very up to the mark and good because you need to satisfy the clients, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. So would love to know that how exactly you pitch to the client.
So Upwork is basically where you submit proposals, right? So there the
Okay.
client has a list of work, right? There's multiple clients there,
Okay.
and you see the clients from your perspective, and you have to submit proposals. So let's say the client
Okay.
puts up a work, right, and you find that you're suitable for that work, then you can just write a proposal which is I am the best person for this work for XYZ reasons, and you submit your proof of work as well. You submit that to the client. Fiverr is very different. Fiverr, it's the exact opposite. So your profile is being shared on the feed, right? And clients reach out to you
Okay.
based on that. So that in itself
Oh,
is very, very tough because there's a lot of competition. Like every day, new people
yeah.
are entering, right? So that is definitely tough. So the way people approach me, right, clients on Fiverr, it's very simple. So if a client is interested in your work, they just message you directly, like just shoot a message to your DM on Fiverr itself.
Okay.
So after that, it's your responsibility to make calls, right? So to have a
Hmm.
schedule a Zoom meeting. I had multiple Zoom meetings because that's the very
Okay.
first thing, right? You need to have your
Hmm.
communication very important. So understand what they need, understand what the requirements are, right? What deadlines is there, and like, and of course at the end negotiate your price, right? So that's very important. So Fiverr just allows that communication to take place. What happens after that is completely your responsibility. So
Up to you.
you have to be very responsible for that. You have to take calls, you have to answer them timely, and obviously submit their work on time. So it's a bit easier on Fiverr because that's why I chose that. I didn't want to personally text clients and get no response. That felt very disheartening, you could say. So, like
Yeah.
clients texting you will feel just lot better, right? So I think that's why I went with Fiverr. Yeah,
Like Upwork is where you have to reach out
yeah,
to the clients, and Fiverr is where they'll reach out to you and they'll send you the communication for. So
yeah,
that's interesting.
yeah.
So do you still depend on these particular freelancing platforms, or have you started receiving the inbound leads
Yeah,
now?
yeah. Good question because that's usually at a time where things get stagnated a lot, right, on freelance platforms. So
Yeah.
the short thing is yes and no. Yes, because there's usually work that's coming in from freelance as well. Because the good thing is that if you obviously take projects, you earn a lot of money from these platform itself. Your profile gets boosted, right? So there's various levels as well.
Yeah.
So after a point, you just start getting so many projects, right, that you can't even handle. Right. So there's no shortage of projects, you could say, on these platforms.
Oh, okay.
But obviously, the problem here is that scalability, right? So a Fiverr
Mm.
takes 20% commission, right? So it's not good if you're charging a
Yeah.
lot of money, right? Because 20% is a lot. You're trying to save as much money as
Yeah.
possible. So that's why I think over time, it's better to have these long-term clients that are coming in, right? So good story right now. I
Yeah.
have two long-term clients right now. I'm working with them for about 4 months now, and also plan to do. And the good thing is that they came from Fiverr itself. So they like approached me on Fiverr. We did a small project, testing project, you could say. And then now I'm working for them like 3 months now. So it's been great. So I think you can rely on freelance platforms, right? But I think the advisable thing to also do is start approaching or cold messaging people on LinkedIn as well. So try to
Mm.
approach smaller startups or smaller companies or even individual founders, right? So you can just approach them for your services, because I think that's sustainable in the long term. Platforms might get shut
Yeah.
down one day, might just your account might get deleted, right? So you have no fallback at all. So you need to have a good idea as well. So again, I still have clients as well from like Fiverr, so it's good. But I'm posting on LinkedIn. I am getting more active,
Mm.
so I'm approaching more people as well. So that is the long term way. That is the most sustainable way, I would say. Like you can still rely on platforms, but going for cold messaging is the way to.
Yeah. And I've seen that there's also defaulting a lot on these platforms. So have you
Yeah.
experienced any of that?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is present, and like I would be lying if I said I didn't face any. Like there's usually, like, the process is very straightforward, but the problem here is that there's a lot of communication issues sometimes, because maybe it's the software or the website itself. Replies get sent 2 hours later, so I'm like, Acha, where is the
Oh.
response? And they're waiting for my response as well. And sometimes projects don't get attached at all, right? And there's a lot of issues with
Oh.
that also. So I mean, that's bound to happen. If you're using a platform, that's bound to happen. But again, I would
Mm.
say it's not like a deal breaker. You could say it doesn't happen every time, right? So there's usually few edge cases here and there. But I would say it's a fairly good experience. Like if you're worried about safety, don't be. You will get your payment, you will get your work, and there's no issues at all. But I would say there's obviously sometimes things happen here and there. So again, long term wise, you should definitely not be reliant on these platforms, but just take clients from these platforms and make them full time clients, right? That's the sustainable way. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the great way. And how
yeah.
exactly do you charge them once they go from the platform to the long-term basis?
Yeah, so there's usually a negotiation that takes place, right? So you'll
Okay.
probably, so over time, that's also a good way. So how to charge your clients is like a whole other story, right? Because you need to be aware of your own potential and also what you feel like is correct, right? So I think the only correct way is to do a lot of projects, right? So you'll start off from bare
Mm.
bones, right? You'll start off from $5, this dirt cheap prices, right? Over time, obviously, you'll charge more and more until you feel like, acha, this has been the consistent trend. So I've been charging X amount of dollars for this client for these projects, right? And that's what I'll charge as a nominal rate. Now, obviously, as you grow, right, people also want different kind of services. So like consultancy services, maybe a small test
Yeah.
project. So you'll probably put up numbers. Again, there's no hard coded numbers because obviously everyone's like more greedy, less greedy. So again, it depends on your person as well. But again, the idea is that to have a good understanding from yourself only. So let's say, again, example, like you have charged your past 5 clients $100 for this project, right? So you'll do this constantly. Now, let's say tomorrow a new client comes in and he wants a different kind of project, right? Like a small scale this thing. So maybe you charge something like $50, right? Again, whatever seems logical to you, right? So over
Yeah.
time, once these clients become your full-time customers, right, you will just transition into like from a project base to a monthly base. So just multiply that
Yeah.
amount by the hours you're working, right? So again, simple calculations here and there, but I think you'll figure it out. Like it's not a big concern. And like obviously people should not be worried about how less you're charging customers, how more you're charging customers, because over time you just figure it out, like by hit and trial. Sometimes people will just blatantly like cancel your orders. Why you're charging this much? So then you have to explain
Yeah.
yourself also. So I think the good balance would be over time once you do a lot of projects as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
One thing I would like to know is what is expected out of the freelance data analyst at the end? Like, okay, you have completed it, but what exactly, clients look for before, initiating the payment or, closing the deal?
Got it, got it. So obviously the client will have a very specific thing in mind, right? Like they want some questions answered, right? But that's where I think a lot of people make mistakes, right? Just delivering the work that's asked out of them. And I
Mm.
made the same mistake, right? Because a client gave me some parameters here and there, right, to just help me across. Not really follow it completely, but just as a refresher and as a guide, you could say. And again, me
Mm.
being a fresher, I just followed the exact same thing. So I just made those questions into analysis and I just presented that. So he was a lot disappointed because what is usually asked is, right, they'll probably help you in terms of different parameters and they'll give you reference points to help your process, but you have to act on your own terms, right? So in what way? In way of like firstly analyzing data. So maybe they'll ask you to analyze this column and that column, right? But that's a very some side a trap, right? Because you have to apply your own skills, right? So just take their problem statement as a top down metric, and then from that you slowly branch out to different things. So understand what is the requirement. Secondly, what columns you can understand, right? What are the most important factors in this data set? Third,
Yeah.
try to find as much relevant knowledge as close to that problem statement, right? So maybe if the demand is of sales, right? Let's say the end result is of sales, right? So find out growth, find out profit, find out things like very relevant terms, right? Which you can find out, right? And apply your own methodology as possible. So clients really need creativity. Like that's a very underrated thing, right? You have to be creative.
Mm.
You have to be really you have to have a good sense of understanding, right? Which is you shouldn't follow very standard techniques. Right? You should come out of the box and think about things which even the
Mm.
client hasn't thought of, right? That's the reason why he's approaching you, right? You are the person who is expert in all of that, right? So you have to be
Yeah.
creative, you have to be insightful, you have to take into account things that probably won't happen but have a good chance of happening, right? That's also important in forecasting. So I think having curiosity, creativity, and also this eagerness to look at things a different way, right? That's the most important. That's what clients need, right? Because they need a very different person from themselves, right? Because that's why they need that person who can
Yeah.
analyze data well, right? So that's why they're approaching you. I think that's the most important thing. Be out of the box, like be different in your analysis skills as well.
Wow. I guess people would judge me that, I called you that you are still in the final year of your college because it doesn't seem like one.
No,
But
thanks a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it really shows the kind of experience you have acquired by doing
Yep.
freelancing. Like,
It's good to always hear that because like as a student itself, it's you're just expected to do a lot of different things, but like
yeah,
I think it's more about hesitancy, right? And this eventual thing that what if I don't do that, right? Because as a student, maybe you're just inclined towards you're just so surrounded people
yeah,
who want to do internships only, just placements,
mm,
right? And you lose that sense of curiosity within you. I think that's important to
mm,
always showcase that, always keep that in mind because even if you're in your final year, right? Even if you're in your third year, it's not too late, right? I mean, you can always
mm,
get jobs later on. You can always land internships, but this curiosity will always fade away once you are so workload ridden, right? Like you'll face so much amount of stress, and later on you just forget about how to explore things, right? So like explore while you can and just make use of your college time as much as you can. Like just explore different things, and once that's done, like you can just focus on one thing, and like when you like that as well.
yeah, at least until you find something you really enjoy
Mhm.
and you really love, just keep searching for that. And this just reminds me of the video of Kunal Shah I recently watched that where he represented these days youth just focus on what if we fail, what if we
Yeah,
lose,
yeah,
what if, what if, all the what ifs. But we haven't even built anything as of now. Like we don't even have a brand, we don't even have a company, we don't have a startup, and we still just fear to lose, we just
yeah,
fear to not get started, whether it's starting a YouTube channel, whether it's starting freelancing, whether it's transitioning your career, whether it's going to a music industry or anything. We are just too scared to even just give it a try because we are so afraid of losing, and we haven't even built anything as of now.
yeah,
We don't have
absolutely.
anything to lose, and still we are scared to lose.
Yeah, no,
So
that's the hard truth, honestly, because like, and the thing is that you can take so many risks in college, right? Because you're not bound by anything, right? Like
yeah,
you don't have like a family or sorts, or like you don't have like obligation to anyone, right? You're on your own, you're just exploring
yeah,
stuff, and there's so much time you have, right? Time is the biggest thing, right? You have time to explore, you have time to do a lot of different skills, and later on you just regret it, honestly. Like it's all about just not utilizing this time, right? Because after that maybe you are influenced by peers, right? But then you have to focus on what's good for you, right? Like not what's like societally accepted, right? Like maybe getting that 50 lpa job is better, right? But right now you are still stuck with your own this hesitancy, right? Like what if I don't do this? So I would say just go for it. Like whatever happens
yes,
happens, and everything is a learning experience. Like even if you don't get
yeah,
successful, everything is a learning experience. You'll just learn better and you'll learn more faster like next time, right? So I would say just go for it. Like that's the only thing. Like there should not be any hesitancy at all. So I was very grateful to
yeah,
talk about that as well because I noticed very quickly that people are enthusiastic, right? People are very inquisitive as well, especially juniors. But what's really
yeah,
stopping them is, I would say, this entire norm as to like you have to pursue this and all. And second thing
yeah,
is awareness. There's not many people talking about freelancing or like stuff like that in your college, right? Like everyone thinks that you
yeah,
can do it once you're have a job, and maybe you look up to someone and all, and they're doing it later on, right?
Yeah.
But it's important to have that awareness. So just spread the word as much as possible. And I think you're doing a great job through your podcast as well. I think a lot of people get inspired as well. And I think that's important because there's so many people who want to do this, who want to take the plunge, but are just hesitant. They just need that
Yeah.
guidance, and then they'll just go for it. I think that's very important. And I think I have talked to so many juniors, they're so excited, and I am so excited to talk about it. So I think that's very important. That's the need of the hour, awareness and just this push
Yeah.
for pursuing that goal of yours.
Yeah, I mean it's really important to, get started. Even I was very reluctant on starting a podcast channel, Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I guess this was really insightful conversation. It was so amazing having you
Yeah,
on for this podcast episode, and I hope this, this episode really helps your juniors and anyone who really wants to start with freelancing, who are still in college, or who have graduated and just want to, get started with
absolutely.
freelancing in the data analytics industry.
No, I mean, I think they'll benefit a lot because all they need is someone to just push them through and they'll
Yeah.
make it. They're already on the edge, right? They just need that final
Yeah.
thing. So I think that will motivate, and I feel very happy to be here. Like, thank you so much for having me. Like, I had a blast just sharing my experiences and talking about it.
Well, if you like the podcast, do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more episodes.